Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Jeff.
And I'm CJ. You haven't woken up from Vegas yet, have you?
No, I gotta. You know, when you're on a plane, people are coughing. The air conditioning. I got stuffy sinuses now because of that thing, and I'm like, and Billy, I feel like my head's stuffed with cotton. But we got a lot of stuff to talk
Try some
about.
saline mist. Try some saline mist.
I've got some. When the show's
Yeah,
over, I'm gonna. And when I get up in the morning, it's always worse. But
yeah,
yeah, so we had a shooting on John Street,
yeah.
and that was rather odd because
I like the explanation.
oh yeah, an accidental shooting. Now
Right.
again, we get back to the fact that there's never any details. It's always like get your guess is first they come out with they were shot in the chest, I believe.
Yes.
And then how can two people get shot in the chest with one bullet? It was an accidental shooting. Now there's all kinds of stuff flying around. We never get it. We never get an accurate picture of anything. So accidental. Well, you know when you shoot somebody, you have to point the gun at them and pull the trigger, unless you're Alec Baldwin. But the reality is that anybody that knows anything about gun safety, the first thing you do is assume every weapon you touch is loaded. So you have to check it, you have to clear it, you have to make sure if there's a round in the chamber. So they violated that one. There's four fundamental rules. And then the next one is never point a gun at anybody at anyone or anything that you don't want to shoot. So that's number two rule violated. Number three rule: don't put your finger in the trigger guard until you're ready to pull the trigger and discharge the weapon. Rule three violated. Rule four: when you discharge that weapon, you're supposed to ensure that you have a clear field behind what you're aiming at so you don't inadvertently hit something that you're not aiming at and kill it. But then again, we've been told that all these people that are running around Fall River have sniper-like accuracy. So the whole thing about this is, look, they're trying to tamp it down. They're trying to make it an accidental shoot. Well, somebody gets shot. Somebody's got a gun. Do we know if that gun was a legal or illegal weapon? No. Do we know why somebody pointed that gun? And I don't know if this happened. Well, of course, I was away, but it said John Street area, so it might have happened outside. And look, the whole thing doesn't make any sense. But again, this is the lack of transparency, cover up everything Coogan, and all the people who work for him that they just participate in covering up stuff. But hey, it is what it is. But that smacks of there's so many things that don't make sense. And I think I heard that somebody said there was like one bullet went through the other person and hit the other one. And well, if they got shot in the chest, the bullet should not be going through anybody. I mean, unless they're shooting armor piercing rounds, because most people who know anything about firearms knows when you're talking about personal protection weapons, people are using hollow points. Those hollow points are designed not to go through anybody, to stay inside and mushroom and cause maximum internal damage. So, whole bunch of things don't make sense, CJ. But then again, this is what we get in Fall River: half stories, twisted stories. The man who ran on transparency. I mean, the guy in North Korea, Hil Jun Yun or whatever his name is, he's more transparent than this guy is. We can't get a straight answer, and we got a whole bunch of other things to cover on this show. Again, that show that all they do is, well, look, let's make this really simple. The theme of this show is how they're delaying everything until after the election. It's like Sergeant Schultz. We know nothing. We got to investigate everything. Then after the election's over, then they'll say things like, hey, we got to have a Proposition 2.5 override, or, oh, we're going to do this. But until the election, everything's under advisement, under study. or under wraps. So with that, back to you, Z.
Well, what's very interesting is I did you see today's Herald News article about Sam Sutter denies owing printer money?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I read that and I was like, okay, campaigns usually have somebody who runs the campaign, and the campaign manager is usually the one that places the orders, and the treasurer is the one that pays the bills. Now, for this bill to go unpaid for over 7 years is an issue because the statute of limitations on it's 3 years, so it's done, it's over with. Okay, you can't file it in court, so you can't collect it in court. Which Mr. Piva turned around and said, well, I was told by my attorney that it's tough to file a lawsuit against another attorney. That's not true. A lawsuit's a lawsuit. But what makes this interesting is that article did not delve too deep into the fact that Arthur Piva is getting $55,000 worth of work from the city of Fall River. Was that by competitive bid process? Was that being done properly? Was that a payoff? This is what you get for giving me money. Is this what you get for helping me out? I don't know. But this is interesting because they made a big thing about a 7-year-old bill. Okay, this is the Herald News that did this now. Made a big thing about a 7-year-old bill, but when it's come forward and been made public that Paul Coogan has failed to pay his taxes and has municipal liens on 2 properties prior to the sale of those buildings, nobody made a big thing about that. He wants you to pay your taxes, but hey, if I don't pay mine, who cares? All right? This is the problem. And if you want to find it, people, because I already know what you're going to say. Oh, you're making this story up, blah, blah, blah. Go to fallriverdeeds.org and find it for yourself. Key in Paul Coogan's name, and you will see municipal lien on the properties. It's easy enough to prove. And that's the problem with this. The Herald News didn't do anything about looking into that now, did they? No, because the Herald News is on the payroll of the mayor, I guess. It just looks that way. It's very scary when you're paying attention to the media and the media is not giving you all the information. And when I've sent things to Joe Good, she turns around and she says, as a matter of fact, I think I still have the email. You pick on my reporting and you pick on my paper and you expect me to follow up with your tips. Well, do it or don't. I don't care. It's up to you. But it is what it is. For instance, when I sent her, she made a big stink about Paul Coogan and the city taking back the Duval School. But when I brought to her attention that the Flint Neighborhood Association was going to fight the city in court, she didn't care. You would think you'd follow up on that, but they didn't. And that's the problem. We're only getting one side of the story, and right now that side of the story is being protected from the public because we don't want to damage the election for the incumbent.
Well, look, the whole thing smacks of political collusion. Number one, as you said, that's bullshit. The guy said you can't sue a lawyer. People sue lawyers all the time. They get them disbarred. They do a lot of things. He didn't sue him because I think in that article they never showed an invoice, did they? They never had an invoice. Piper never had an invoice.
Nope.
They showed some emails, but
Some
they never
text
showed an
messages.
invoice. And secondly, why 3-year statute of limitations, he can't sue any longer. So he didn't sue. But now, he never said a word. He never said a word about this until just before an election. And he's made $55,000. But did Joe Good press Coogan? Did they go take him to court for were they bid or no bid contracts? No. And and I believe it is alleged that she also works a side job at a pot place that is owned by a former mayor who is right solidly backing Coogan. He's given the maximum donations to Coogan. So, are we that naive that this isn't the last minute mudslinging at the end of a campaign? If Piva had any kind of proof, it would have been done a long time ago. And if he was that upset about it, it took him 7 years to get pissed off enough to push this issue and take it to the newspaper. As you said, why didn't Joe Good write about Coogan's being arrears on two houses? Didn't pay his taxes when he was making good money. It's not like he was destitute. He had a pretty damn good job, but he didn't pay his taxes. And also, did Joe Good ever do a piece on how much money in insurance is going over to Bay Coast Bank, and Patrick Norton, who works at the insurance agency that is attached to Bay Coast Bank? All of those people are connected. We all know the Longs are related. Did she ever ask the question? Did she ever ask the question, how much insurance has Patrick Long picked up since Paul Coogan's become mayor? But that was never asked. They don't even go there. And now, segue into something else that they don't talk about. Now we know that the Arbitrators Award is down. And I've got something that you've got, I think, and it's from the Fall River, and it says, the City of Fall River has received the Joint Labor Management Committee's, JLMC's, decision and award for a successor agreement with the Fall River Firefighters Local 1314 IAFF. The city has an obligation to support funding this award, consistent with our duty to bargain in good faith under Chapter 150E. The city fully intends to comply with this obligation under the law. At this time, we are reviewing the decision. Until the review is complete, the city will have no comment. Well, number one, this is the biggest crock of shit I have ever seen in my life. Because number one, he didn't bargain in good faith, because he sent a confidential letter that violates the law they're saying they're obeying. It's not in good faith.
Which, by the way, the Secretary of State found the city guilty of not providing that document when I asked for it.
That's right. And to fully comply. You're not fully complying when you're sharing bargaining information, as I said on one of the shows previously. And for all you turds out there who like to now weigh in, how many arbitrations have you been into? Do you even know what JLMC stands for? Except it's in the letter, you might know now. Do you have any idea what's in that statute? Well, go read it. It's a 150E. But I know it. I went to the JLMC twice and won. Unlike you, I don't just talk about stuff. I've done it. Been there, done that. And I know what the law says. And I got the email that I read from a very prominent, one of the most prominent labor attorneys in the state, that said this was just a blatant attempt to undermine the collective bargaining process under 150E. And it was. He had no right to send that stuff to the city councilors, because everything he talked about is irrelevant, as they said in this letter. It's their job now under the statute. They don't have a choice. They've got to present it. And there's no reason for them to look it over, by the way, except to delay it till after the election. What are they going to look at? The Arbitrators Award is final and binding. All they have to do now is figure out how much it's going to cost them. They don't need the law department to review it. They don't need anybody to review it. They need Bridget and a band of merry consultants to cost it out and bring it to the council and say, this is how much this contract is going to cost us. This is nothing more than a delaying tactic, because I'm going to tell you something. That letter, which was illegal, was whining, trying to get them to not fund it and not approve it. And if they do, and the election is over, I can guarantee you Paul Coogan's going to pull out that little presentation that was made by Mary Sahadi and say, oh, we can't afford this contract. We're going to need a Proposition 2.5 override. You guys are going to pay more taxes. You got to override for Durfee, override for public safety. But I'm not laying off any of my 68 friends that I hired. Or I'm not pulling back the $19,000 pay raises that I gave out. Because we don't give it, my people don't get touched. Because that's what's going to happen. Because they're going to say, after the fact, remember that. We got it in writing. Permanent cuts in public safety, in fire and police. Permanent cuts. That was on Mary Sahadi's punch list before the ARPA money bailed his ass out. Permanent cuts in fire and police, Proposition 2.5 override, purple bags, and trash pickup fees. That is a matter of record. We've got the video of the city council meeting. We've got the text of what she proposed, and we've got Paul Coogan saying, well, I am looking at the reinstituting the trash fee. So, taxpayers of Fall River, get the Vaseline, because after this election, they're coming for you. Back to you, CJ.
Well, we can't make up this stuff. And and remember, this is just a possibility. We can't say it's definitely going to happen, although we know in our heart it is. We can't say it's definitely going to happen. It's a strong possibility. And we see this all the time. Cover up Coogan. Cover up Coogan. It's always cover up Coogan. It never changes. It's a constant fight with the city council, between Paul and the city council. Although most of the time it doesn't seem like much of a fight. It seems like it's a fight between the mayor and Michelle Dion, because all the other city councils go, yeah, give it to the mayor, give it to the mayor. That's the way it seems. That's why it surprised the hell out of me when they turned around and tabled the Bank Street Armory again for a third time. It really did. But I firmly believe that when that comes back to the city council, you're going to see that miraculously, out of the clear blue sky, we're not able to fund it, and therefore we got to sell it. You know what, Mr. Macomba, I know you've got money invested in the Bank Street Armory project already, but you know what? You threatened to pull out already. Do the city a favor and pull out of the project. There's nothing else you can. You've threatened us enough. Okay? And threats don't work. So if you want to pull out, pull out. We don't need to be threatened. And for those people who think that, because I saw memes on social media that said, congratulations, you saved the Bank Street Armory in 2023. And said, but this is it in 2050. And it showed the Bank Street Armory with, moss and ivory and stuff growing all over it, which I thought was kind of interesting. But the threats that it's going to become the police station doesn't work either. I firmly believe that if the city represents the people like they're supposed to, they will find a way to fund the restoration, the maintenance, and upkeep of the Bank Street Armory for use by the veterans, by the community, and by other agencies. I mean, I'm sure we can use CDA money. I'm sure we can use, if the mayor wants to take some of the ARPA money, which he hasn't spent yet on DCM, feel free. Because remember, that $18 million is already gone on a DCM project. Don't ask me why. But, look at where these monies can be used. And definitely look at the money from the federal government and the state government on historic preservation, on National Register buildings. Let's really look at making this happen. That's what's important. And while I'm speaking about money, Carol Fiola announced that the city got $2.2 million in money for Stafford Square, I guess, problem solving, and for the frontage of a building in the business district to create retail on the first floor and 28 affordable and market rate units in the building, which means Carol Fiola is working for her husband, because that's where that money goes. Her husband has a vested interest in all these projects, and by virtue of giving that money to the city, I think it's a conflict. Her husband's going to get a benefit from it. And I'm sure that if the state representatives and the state senators were obliged to follow the ethics law, we wouldn't have these problems. But then again, maybe we might.
Well, look, CJ. First of all, let me circle back, as Jen Psaki used to say, to the Bank Street Armory with the memes. Look, isn't it amazing how these are the same people, but they think everybody's stupid because they just want to they just deflect blame like Coogan always does it. She's like Biden. The border's closed. Bidenomics is working, even though we know it's not. And people just are going to blindly accept this. Well, listen, I've said it time and time again on this show. I don't want to hear that crap about maintenance. This city has an ordinance that requires them to maintain buildings. The school department has an entire maintenance department who are being paid to maintain buildings. Everybody says this is going to be the Bank Street Armory in 2050. Well, that's because between 23 and 2050, our city officials, the city council, and whoever the mayors are not making the people whose pockets they're lining with salaries do their damn job. Every time there's a building that has fallen into disrepair, every supervisor, every department head of the maintenance division who are required by law to maintain buildings by our city ordinances should be brought in. They should fire everybody. This has been going on for 50 years in this city. 50 years it's been going on in this. I'm sick and tired of this crap. They don't blame, we don't blame ourselves. We're going to sit on our thumbs, not require people who we're paying. Let's hire 17 more to help them. Let's get her a financial advisor. Let's bring back another old political tick as a consultant. Pay them all, and they still don't get the job done. Listen, the fire stations in this city are still in fairly decent shape, and are a lot older than Durfee. You know why? Because the fire department people live in those buildings, and they have spring cleaning every year where they clean them from top to bottom with the general cleaning, not doing any maintenance work. But guess what? If the roof's leaking, they're going to call and get it fixed because it's going to leak on their heads. If the electricity is screwed up, they're going to call and get the damn thing fixed. So don't tell me they can't do maintenance. We've got fire stations right now working that were built in the 1800s. And there are still people living in them. So don't give me this crap. I'm sick and tired of these politicians love to just kick the can down the road, blame everybody else for their lack of ability to require accountability by the people who are getting big money. They don't do it. So don't blame the people. You see, we can't sell that building because we can't maintain anything in Fall River. Well, is it your fault, CJ, and my fault? No, we keep paying our taxes to pay those people to maintain the buildings, and they don't, and then they use that for an excuse to sell the building for nothing to their friends. That's politics. That's politics. Patronage and bullshit, because that's what it comes down to. I'm sick and tired of that shit with the arm. Like you can't maintain anything because they don't. They don't. You think somebody would make a call if a building's falling apart? Listen, they couldn't find an entire building that DCM bought. And they tripped over it when they were looking for something else, and it had been laying there for 5 years, and now it's not usable. This is what happens when you have government. There's never any accountability for these people. All you got to do is look at the gold bar congressman, Biden and his criminal enterprises with money all over the place, and the FBI just ignoring it. Millionaires, they don't care. They just go on with their merry way. And as you said, like the reps, they're exempt. They're exempt from what, if you and I did half of the stuff they did, we'd be in the can. And like I said, and they love to talk about, so this is what's going to happen. Well, put the blame where it is. It's not on our problem. You're right. They don't maintain the buildings. I agree with you. But we're supposed to maintain the buildings. But you can't, so that to me disqualifies your attempt to use that as an excuse. We have to get rid of the Army because we can't maintain it. You're not the one that is looking at our politicians and say, do your damn job. We're paying people to maintain those buildings and fix them before they go been completely destroyed to the point of no return. But you know something? Even the point of no return is a pile of bullshit. Do you remember when they said the Durfee building was beyond repair? You remember that, CJ?
Yes, I do.
And what is it now? A courthouse.
That's right.
When somebody wanted to go in and spend the money, and I granted they had to spend a hell of a lot more money to fix it up because they had let it fall into Fall River again. Let it fall into a total state of disrepair. A total state of disrepair. State came in, fixed up the building. The building's still beautiful now. Yeah, it just goes to show that you can actually maintain buildings if you want to. But we don't. We just give all our friends jobs over there and say, hey, collect your paycheck, have a good time, and don't worry about it. When the building falls apart, we'll just sell it to somebody we know for dirt cheap. Then they'll either rehab it, plow it under, and build something else that they're going to make money off. And who at the end is suffering? We, the taxpayers. So I don't want to hear your crap. It's like you guys are going to now talk about this JLMC thing. You've never been there. You don't know it. The only time you guys have probably been in court is as a defendant. Not as someone who was actually in the middle of the process doing an arbitration or doing something. Because all you guys are is keyboard commandos. You could call people names, and in the old days it was nice because you couldn't do it over something like this. You'd have to walk up to them and try to call them a name and see if you can get away with it. So that's the problem we got. We got these people that like to do a lot of talking, and they know absolutely nothing about what they're talking about. Why aren't you complaining about the lack of maintenance by our city? Go look up the ordinance. I know what the ordinance says because I pulled it once. Because when we were doing spring cleaning, and they said, why should we be doing spring cleaning when a maintenance division is required to maintain the buildings? And then we ended up with a decision to say, well, you guys, you got to it's not heavy duty cleaning, but we washed the walls and did everything, but we reported everything. So the reality is, look, I know that it's an ordinance. There's not a city on the planet or a town on the planet that doesn't have some kind of ordinance that says that the people who work for that community are obligated to maintain the buildings that the taxpayers pay for. But again, what do we got? We get it tucked again. So with that, CJ, because nothing pisses me off when you get off on that tangent and start talking about people who say we can't maintain buildings. Well, go, if that's your case, don't vote for anybody except Michelle Dion that's running for city council. Vote for 8 other new people, because the reason they don't maintain buildings is nobody ever holds them accountable. Just like when Kilby wanted to spend $1 million on the fields when a city was in a toilet financially, because he didn't care about our taxpayer money. And look what happened to those fields. They're plowed under again. They don't care how much of our money they spend. So if you want to complain about this is what's going to happen by 2050, clean out the council and clean out the 6th floor.
You know what's we got a comment from Mr. Fitzgerald on YouTube. He says, still no legitimate reasons for the 22 windows offsetting Moses' more taxes was not an indictment. 9 councilors, Tim McCoy, mayor at the time, no indictments. 22 windows over a highway at Government Center. Okay, so, I mean, people are still aware. You know, you can't say we forgot, because people don't forget. They remember these things. And just look at the old Durfee building, the old new Durfee building, the one they just knocked down to build this new high school. They said that it was unusable, couldn't fix it. Maybe if they had been repairing it from day one, and I know that from day one it had problems, but maybe if they had been maintaining it and repairing it since day one, that building might still be standing today. But no, we need a brand new building, which is already falling apart. The roofs are leaking. The kids are burning the bathrooms. They got, paint. They got graffiti on things. They're beating the crap out of each other. But hey, the building is going to teach them all, right? New buildings teach kids. That's why we need to make them $263 million. Oh, and then after we're done with that, we got to take another $5 million to put the athletic fields in. Oh, and we need another $2 million to put this in. We had to put it down to 263 to make it bearable for the taxpayer, and then we'll add it on later and jab them it again, because it's always us. We pay the bills, and they don't care. And that's why Mr. Kilby doesn't care about putting $5 million into new fields. That's why the school committee doesn't care about putting $5 million into new fields. We just gave you a new building for $263 million. You forgot to put the buildings in. Your tough luck. Eat it. When Durfee didn't have basketball courts, they went down to the Bank Street Armory. Oh, here we go again, Bank Street Armory. Okay? Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Go down to Bank Street Armory. When we didn't have football fields, where did we go? Alumni Field. That's where we went. That's what we did. We had those things. We found a way to make it happen. So just make it happen.
But remember one thing, CJ. The old Durfee, we had one guy go to jail and a whole bunch of people getting fired. And remember, they covered this up too. A lot of people don't know. There is a pending lawsuit about the awarding of those bids for Durfee and Diamond. There is a lawsuit pending by a contractor who said that bid was given out illegally and it was money funneled through back channels to people. So we all remember when Jerabak went to jail and a few people got fired, Alakram and a few others, on the last Durfee. And who knows, maybe down the road we're going to see some of these people go to jail, because there is a lawsuit pending and somebody has a money trail. And I'm surprised that, with all the, at the end of this time, I'm surprised that hasn't been released by some campaign, because we do know this suit. So I saw it. I think you saw it.
I did.
And we saw the text and email and from the individual who described in detail how he got screwed out of that contract for Durfee and again in Diamond. And he also had the money trail really down and articulated it very clearly how it went through a back channel and got fed through, and it ended up with and I think I remembered in amount, it was like $60,000. So
That was for a campaign mailing, if I remember correctly.
exactly, and the reality is that there's a lot of shenanigans going on, and at least with Flanagan, it rhymed Flanagan shenanigans, but we can't rhyme it with this one. So, but look, stop always Fall River. We're always the excuse maker, the city of excuses. Oh, it's not our fault. Everybody picks on Fall River, blah blah blah. You guys pick. We don't pick on Fall River. We just call it. Listen, we didn't destroy the old Durfee. They did with lack of maintenance. Are we lying when we say there's a maintenance department in the school department? No. Are we lying when we say we have a department of community maintenance? Ooh, the operative word. Did you pick that one up? Maintenance. Maintenance. Shouldn't somebody, i.e. maybe the department head, be held accountable? Shouldn't we have some kind of plan to have a department head go out and inspect all city buildings regularly to ensure that they don't need any work before it gets to be beyond repair? Well, I mean, if this was a private company, they'd say yes, because we have to eat the bill. But they don't give two shits about that because we're paying it, and we're going to keep paying it, because the taxes are going to keep going up for them never doing their job. And the city council and the mayor and the school committee are directly responsible, because just like to this day, we still don't have a plan of progressive discipline in this city or on the school side, in spite of what happened with Malone, what happened previous to Malone, and what happened subsequently from Malone. We know we've had all kinds of issues in the school department, but not once have we heard, we're going to fire people, we're going to have a progressive discipline. Somebody screws up, they're going to get a verbal reprimand, a written reprimand, and an ever-escalating thing until we get to termination, when people aren't doing their job. But you see, the only word that is less vilified by the political arm is forensic. Forensic is the epitome. But after that, the next word down on their food chain that they never want to hear is accountability. And on the second Tuesday in November, you as a citizen have the option to hold them accountable.
Well, I've got to agree with you there. And Mr. Fitzgerald just said something very interesting. 22 highways over a highway at Government Center. Superintendent mocking handicapped workers. Former police department officers suppressing drugs in desks. I admire both of you for the consistency of and educating our community. Well, we said this 12 years ago, and we'll say it again. We're not paid off. As a matter of fact, we've taken the hits. And that's why we're doing our show the way we're doing it now, because the mayor has allegedly told Bristol Community College that if they didn't take us off the air, that they would withhold the $100,000 a year that they get from the city. And that was reported in an email by Joe Good. So that's interesting. And I had that email. I've got a copy of it. So we know the dirt. We dig it up. We find it. And I want to thank you for watching, Mr. Fitzgerald. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. I think it's important that you do, because you're going to have it. I agree. I agree, Mr. Lima. They are paid to shut up. Hold them accountable. So, as you can see, when we get some participation going, it's always great. We're at the end of our show. I want to thank you all for watching. And remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Monday. Yeah, Monday. Have a great day.